So hello and welcome to this week's edition of Mindful Monday. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy you're all here. As you're coming on, whether it be live or if you're watching the replay, feel free to type in the comments where you're coming from. We always like to know that. Of course, if you have any questions or any future topics you'd like to see covered, you can either reach out to me direct message or also write that in the comments. So today we're here to talk about motivation, and motivation is something that really excites me because there's they call them four different types of motivation. So one is, of course, going to be extrinsic, meaning outside of ourselves. And so we could say that motivation itself is the act or the process of the reason we give someone for something that we do or why we do the things we do. So if it's an external, an extrinsic, external, something that's not coming within us, then that means that we might be feeling compelled to act or behave in a certain way. And this isn't necessarily a negative thing. Some examples of positive extrinsic influences can be a reward or a prize per se. And then of course we have intrinsic motivation, which is something is aligning with our values. And so that's one of the most positive ones because that's the one that we seem to go for and to achieve the easiest. There's two other types of motivation though as well, which I find interesting. One is called introjected. So introjected motivation is also an intrinsic, it comes from within, but it tends to be because we feel pressured, and not necessarily in a negative way, but pressured to do something either for acceptance or for appreciation. And so some of these things can be, family members, bosses, kind of things, or partners, anything like that. And then there's a fourth type, which is called identified motivation, and it's also intrinsic, but it means that the motivation, the interest in the motivation, I'll say, is there. We understand that it would be a good idea to act upon this motivation, but we're not quite ready yet. So for instance of that would be somebody might know that smoking is no longer considered that great for you. It causes cancer, it costs money kind of thing, but they haven't yet got to the decision point of stopping. So those are the four main types of motivation that I like to talk about. There's two major motivation styles though, in my opinion. So one is going to be away from pain, and that is something that we come to learn very quickly as children. You touch a hot stove and you no longer want to do that. Or anything that kind of involves punishment or not being allowed to do the things you want to do because your parents said that was not so good. So that's motivation away from pain. And while it can be useful in certain circumstances, it's not necessarily our best motivator if we want to affect change in hypnosis or NLP, because it's focusing on what we don't want. And we want to focus on what we do want. And so that is where we talk about motivation toward, and it can be towards a goal, an achievement, a pleasure, or something like that. So some of the things that we can do to help motivate us, depending on what you're wanting to be motivated for, is you can place little sticky notes with little affirmations. For instance, if you wanted to lose some weight, you might put a sticky note on the fridge. You can put them in your car, your locker at work kind of thing, next to your bedside. Just things that kind of help remind you of what your actual goals are or your values are. You can decide how you'll celebrate when you do achieve whatever goal you're motivated towards. And so, for instance, if it's losing weight, I don't think it's a great necessary goal to say I'm going to eat a whole chocolate cake or something like that, but you can decide something fun that you might do instead of that. Another thing that's nice when it comes to motivation is to really kind of step into, feel, sense, or imagine what it's going to be like after you've achieved your goal. So really getting in touch with that is an awesome thing. And you can also, to further on that, you can do what we call mental rehearsal. And that's and my favorite time to do mental rehearsal is right before going to sleep, because your subconscious brain never sleeps, is to kind of just see yourself achieving that goal. See, sense, imagine, whatever works for you, but just imagine what the steps taken and how you would take them. So that is called mental rehearsal. We've talked about that in the past, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Another thing that we can do is we can really anchor into all of our successes. So I tend to use a yoga mudra or a hand kind of gesture. as well as my breath, and then a word or a phrase. But you can do anything you like. But you definitely want to anchor into your positives, particularly if they're related to another goal that you're motivated towards, because that can help get you more excited about these kind of things. So that's really all that we have to say about motivation today. I will say one other thing though. When we're talking about the subconscious mind, it doesn't understand negatives. So if your goal would be something like losing weight per se, then you want to motivate yourself towards how it's going to feel afterwards. And you certainly don't want to write any affirmations like, do not eat chocolate cake. All the subconscious mind hears is chocolate cake, so you'll eat that. So different little tricks and tools and hacks there. And I hope you're having a wonderful time. I will let us go early today because I spent the whole weekend, and it was a wonderful weekend, involved in a conference for HEA, which is the Hypnosis Education Association. And it's a great organization. We do a conference in April here in Oldsmar. And then the one that was this past weekend is usually in Orlando, but with storms, etc., we did go online. And we have a few other hangouts that happen online. So it is a wonderful organization. If you have any questions and you'd like to get involved, you don't even have to be a hypnotist. I became a member of that way before I studied this stuff, and it was a very supportive community. So just reach out if you have any questions, and have a wonderful Mindful Monday. Take care, and remember to write mindful in the comments if you'd like to get our PDF cheat sheet every week. Have a good one.